Hello, Albsterz here. After recently completing Security Breach and getting the true ending for the very first time, I was left confused as Burnt Trap or William Afton has came back. But people were telling me, no, you need to have a little look into the Mimic theory, and that is what we're going to be doing today. We're learning about the biggest twist of Security Breach.
Let's have a little look. The FNAF community has lost their minds over something called the Mimic. This new character has apparently solved a bunch of mysteries surrounding Security Breach. And
yeah, because it was so out of the blue that he arrived at the end. I was like, it's cool that he's back, but also with the blob as well. In this video,
I'm going to explain what the Mimic is and my theory for how I think it fits into the game's story. The Mimic is actually something we've heard before in this franchise. The first instance of the word Mimic being used in a FNAF game was actually in FNAF World with the Mimic Ball. If you use this ability while fighting enemies, it would mimic any attack you made.
I still need to play FNAF World as well. So what I'm kind of thinking the Mimic is obviously doing is like, it's become its own AI kind of like machine, like we see with Roxy having a breakdown with inside her room and also talking to herself in the mirror.
Before sending that same attack a second time. But as far as the Mimic we know today, there's actually two versions of it. The program version of it was actually introduced last month in the last Tales book in a story called The Storyteller, but more on that later. The physical Mimic was actually introduced in the most recent Tales book in a story called The Mimic. This book actually doesn't release until May 2nd, but some bookstores are just putting them on the shelves early, and that—
What?
That's how I got it. The Mimic centers around Edwin and his son David, who was known for carrying around a white tiger plushie. After Edwin's wife Fiona passed away while giving birth to David—
Hold on, isn't the tiger also connected to the other book that they've got? So the books are connected then. Like, you have to read the books in order to connect the entire lore, and they're just subtly dropping stuff into the games from the books, potentially?
He was now a single father with little money. Edwin worked for Fazbear Entertainment as an engineer, building and fixing robots such as Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy for the company. The story states that one of the first animatronics he created was a robotic vacuum cleaner. He then sold enough of the vacuums to start his own company, but his company ended up failing and being bought out by Fazbear Entertainment for unknown reasons. The Fazbear executive stated that Edwin was, quote, doing the right thing. Now,
is he the one that ended up selling the crate and the other ones as well? And they were good animatronics.
Now, as a single dad who's low on money, he lived in an abandoned factory. He turned a portion of the factory into a makeshift apartment for him and his son to live in. One day, David kept asking his dad if they could go get ice cream, and Edwin had to say no because he was so behind on his work. He realized he needed someone or something to watch over his son and keep him entertained so he could devote more time to his work. He then built the Mimic, an endoskeleton running a software Edwin created called Mimic 1. The endoskeleton was programmed to mimic anything it saw. David loved the endoskeleton, and Edwin was finally able to get a ton of work done. The Mimic even eventually had its own makeshift tiger plushie that it carried around, just like David's. Everything was great until one day when Edwin was busy working, David chased after his red ball that was rolling into the street and got hit by a car.
What a dumbass! Why did you have to go do it? This kind of gives it that, it's kind of similar in the way that David becomes a rogue AI within Alien. If you've seen the film Alien with Michael Fassbender, that's pretty much the story that happens, that he becomes rogue and creates his own subspecies of like humanoid and alienoid
killing
creature.
Edwin, so overwhelmed with sadness and rage, was only left with the Mimic, who was still mimicking his deceased son. In a fit of rage, Edwin destroyed the endoskeleton, hitting it over and over again with a metal rod. The story then skips ahead in time to a few months later. Edwin is missing.
Where did the Mimic end up then?
Were sent to the abandoned factory where Edwin and his son lived for unknown reasons. The entrance to the building had double doors that locked behind you once you were inside. Now locked inside, the Fazbear employees were left to deal with the Mimic, who started brutally killing them one by one. The Mimic loved dressing up in disguises, using old costumes left behind by Edwin. The Mimic first used a jester costume, then switched its costume to other characters, eventually killing off every employee by ripping off their limbs. The Mimic was taught to mimic whatever it saw, so after that day where Edwin took all of his anger out on it, it now was going to do the same to anyone it came in contact with.
So do the Macarena or something, and then it'll start dancing. I don't know. Play some music. Send Chris Brown in there and like, do a bit of breakdancing, so the mimic's like, oh, okay, this is what I've got to do.
So let me know if you've heard this before. So we've got a dad who built a robot for his kid. The kid dies with his death involving a car. Now the robot was then literally a robotic version of his kid. The dad, then after the death of his kid, pours his agony into the robot, beats it up, and now the robot is an evil version of his now deceased kid. This story is quite literally mimicking Henry's story. Edwin was revealed to be the creator of the main 4 animatronics, something Henry also reveals to be the case.
Small souls trapped in prisons of my making.
We literally see Edwin's robotic vacuum in Henry's pizzeria in FNAF 6.
That's so cool. So we're not actually dealing with like trapped souls and stuff, maybe potentially going forward. It's more to do with like the AI software and how that can be changed and altered depending on the actual AI itself. That's what the schematics suggest. Maybe he wanted to build a doll that could grow up with you since you lost Sammy. And it's also kind of reminiscent, or like where Blumhouse went with Megan, if you've ever seen the film for
Henry
that.
rebuilt his daughter, Charlie, after her murder, which also involved a car. In the books, Henry pours his agony into the adult Charlie bot, who Afton then steals and turns into Baby/Elizabeth. Baby lured kids in with ice cream, which was David's favorite snack. So if Baby really is the in-game version of the Mimic, is there in-game evidence to back this up? Well, let's look back at the first game Baby was introduced in, FNAF World. JC Jack on Twitter pointed out that the Mendo character from FNAF World could easily be a mix of the words Mimic and Endo. A character named Mimic was already established in the game, so that's not too hard to believe. But the
Hold on, is there a bigger thing? Because I know FNAF World is really underappreciated in the FNAF community, I've been told. The fact that FNAF World could potentially be hiding like all this lore is really cool.
Mimic Ball and Mendo also share one very distinct feature, the antenna on top of both of their heads. This antenna can also be found on another character in this franchise, Baby. But not just Baby. The antenna also shows up on every animatronic we know that Henry created. As we know, the whole idea of Afton stealing the Charlie bot and turning it into Baby was in the Silver Eyes trilogy, which began releasing a whole 6 months before Baby was introduced in FNAF World Update 2. It was also Update 2 that Scott said he wanted to pull elements from for FNAF Into Madness. If you keep up with the channel, you already know that I think FNAF Into Madness is the games we are currently playing, with the BB World game and Security Breach literally being called Scott Into Madness in the game files.
The game files have so much stuff. This is so cool. And this is why I love Security Breach so much. Because of how complex and ambitious it is, and potentially how good the story is going to become if this is correct in terms of the Mimic.
Name Into Madness came from Foxy.exe, where Foxy says,
"Be sure your step through the heart of madness."
This was Scott introducing the idea of a character entering the real world by driving the player of a minigame into madness, which is what we see happen to Vanessa in FNAF VR, and now I believe happened to Gregory when he played the BB World game. The character you unlock when you beat Foxy.exe in Update 2 is Nightmare Rion.
Sorry, I keep pausing. I just keep getting like these ideas in my head connecting to the actual story. So in the Security Breach DLC then, that is Gregory going insane, or he's played the BB game and that's him trying to voice out a message to try and get Cassie to come inside the actual Pizzaplex. But we'll probably end up finding out that we're not able to save him because he's potentially gone mad.
Evil/dark version of Charlie, which is quite literally what Baby is in the books. Not to mention in Security Breach, there's a secret room in the Endo daycare that features an endoskeleton that only activates once you grab the Nightmare Rion plush sitting in front of it. I believe Baby, aka the evil version of Charlie that Henry built and then Afton stole, is the big bad and will be revealed to be the big bad in the DLC. I know that sounds insane, but stay with me. Now, I know all of you hardcore Mimic enjoyers are pressing X to doubt everything I've said in this video so far because of one very important thing I left out, the epilogues. So let's talk about them. If you don't know, at the end of every Tales from the Pizzaplex book, there's an epilogue, and all of these epilogues from every book are one coherent story. The epilogues in the Tales books also feature the Mimic. The story begins with some workers who were hired to clean up the old pizzeria we see under the Pizzaplex. While they were cleaning though, they received a delivery of quote state-of-the-art animatronics that were for the Pizzaplex.
And that's why we see the cleaning bot down there that's covered in all the sewer and stuff. Or it may look like, yeah, potentially? Was that a cleaning bot or was that a security bot? The only bot that was outside of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place when you were turning on the generators and with all the different endos that were there.
These were presumably the Glamrock animatronics. One of the workers quickly noticed that one of the animatronics was destroyed, saying, quote, well, they're gonna need another guitarist, referring to what I think was Bonnie. The workers had a lot of work to do, but one of them had a plan. What if these new animatronics could do the work for us? So he plugged his laptop into Bonnie and ordered it to take off the arms and legs of all of the endoskeletons laying around and throw them into a pile.
Oh, and that's another thing. Hey, I see Toast, I do believe. Right, Toast, is it? His theory saying that the glitchy thing that we see at the end of Security Breach's Ruined DLC or teaser trailer is actually Bonnie. It's like, oh, I need to take in all this theory. I need... This is just so cool.
And surprisingly, Bonnie did what he was told. Once he was done with the endoskeletons, though, he started ripping off the arms and legs of the workers, one by one, tearing them apart. One of the workers escaped and told the guys to seal up the entrance with cement, locking Bonnie and all of the dead workers inside. Later on in the epilogues, a group of friends decide to go explore the same pizzeria the Bonnie animatronic was left in. Eventually, they get trapped in there with him, and he starts killing them off one by one. In the newest epilogue, we learned that the Bonnie endo that was killing them was version 2 of the original Mimic endoskeleton, and that Fazbear Entertainment actually built a whole line of these Mimic endoskeletons. And
is that why we see so many down there? We eventually crawl down there? But doesn't Monty end up destroying Bonnie though? Is this why then? Because Bonnie was going on such a rampage that he was like, well, who do you think you are? Killing everyone. That's my job.
And that's basically all we know so far from the epilogues. Obviously, this Bonnie Mimic endoskeleton is a big metaphor for Burn Trap. And the big reveal is that Burn Trap isn't actually William Afton, but a Mimic endoskeleton that's trying to replicate William Afton. Now, do I believe that the Mimic we hear about in the epilogues is Burn Trap? Yes. But do I believe the story we hear in the epilogues is 100% how it happened? No. That wasn't the case for the epilogues in the Fazbear Frights books, and I don't think that's the case now. Here's what I think happened. So it seems that in order to cut corners on development, Fazbear Entertainment stole Edwin's Mimic program and used it for their VR game.
That would make sense.
But when they scanned Mimic 1 into the game, the program quite literally got the spark notes of Afton's greatest hits, because that game quite literally spells out the story of Afton through the minigames. The program then created Glitch Trap, a new digital recreation of William Afton created by the Mimic 1 software. Glitch Trap.
Okay, for anyone that doesn't know and is new and just watching this video for the first time of me reacting to the Mimic, I haven't played the VR games yet because the VR headsets is just so expensive. It's like, goddamn. And I know you can play it in non-VR, but it's not the same experience, so I've got that gap missing within the kind of like lore that I've collected. I've also got to play FNAF World and Ultimate Custom Night as well.
Trap was now willing to do anything to get out of the VR game and enter the real world. That's where Vanessa comes in. While playtesting the game, Vanessa fell under the control of Glitch Trap, now becoming his reluctant follower who he could control. After Vanessa gets infected, he orders her to make a bunny costume, just like him. She even starts mimicking his behavior, his wave, his shushing motion, his skipping. Glitch Trap then realizes he needs an endoskeleton of his own to occupy, so Vanessa gets to work on that. Vanessa then destroys Bonnie to use his endo for Glitch Trap. We see proof of this in-game. When we first meet Vanessa in the first aid area, she walks away into a gated-off room. This room is where you can find the duffel bag about Bonnie's last whereabouts and also Bonnie's leg.
What? Oh, this is why I've got to go around and collecting all the other pieces. I still haven't done that. That's huge. So what is the endoskeleton that is within the main thing, like the parts and services area? What is that one that's just standing there, like all glitched out outside of the cages where you upgrade Freddy? Do we know who that endoskeleton is, or is that just one of the mimics potentially?
How do I know this is Bonnie's leg? Something that I didn't notice until recently is that these boxes are kind of stacked like they're steps. Like Steelwolf wants you to climb on top of them and examine the leg. So that's exactly what I did. And what I found is something that I've yet to see anyone else discover. As you can probably see, there is remnants of Bonnie's blue paint on the endoskeleton leg. And it's not just in one spot, it's all over this thing. And if Vanessa is using parts of Bonnie's endoskeleton to help rebuild Afton, and one of Bonnie's legs is on this table,
Hold on, was it? Oh, there's another leg then in basement 2. when you come down initially from the show stage and you go all the way down, there's a leg literally in the basement just there on its own. So is that connected to Bonnie? Or is that just one of the animatronics that got destroyed? With the mimic? Because that never got answered. It's just like, yeah, there's a leg there. I think it was a leg. Let me know if I'm right with that.
The other one is attached to Burn Trap. And I think it's entirely possible that Vanessa used parts of Scrap Trap's endoskeleton and some of the new and old endos that Fazbear Entertainment made. Which explains why the other leg doesn't have the same amount of toes as the Bonnie leg. Why would Glitch Trap want Bonnie? Because Glitch Trap wants to mimic William Afton. No other animatronic would make sense. After decommissioning Bonnie, Vanessa then put the Glitch Trap virus into the Bonnie endo. We see this in the FNAF AR emails when Vanessa isolates the virus into one place, aka into the Bonnie endo. Now, all that Vanessa needs to do is get the Bonnie slash Glitch Trap slash Mimic endo to Afton's body. She does this by using Glamrock Freddy to clear the path down to where Afton's body lived.
Oh, and that's why he says, oh, I've been here before and I cleared the path.
The Bonnie endo, now with Glitch Trap inside of it, then quite literally takes Afton's corpse and puts it on himself. Which is why, when we see Burn Trap in-game, Afton's corpse is on a newer version of the Bonnie endoskeleton.
Oh, it would make sense with, like, the, like the knobbly thing here on the, where you're directly on the shoulder. Oh, that's so cool. If they actually take this route and have the mimic going forward, and we have to end up taking down a glitch-trapped version of Bonnie? And that would be at the end of the DLC trailer. Because also, someone said in connection with the Vanny mask as well that you get at the end of one of the endings is kind of canon.
We also learned that Bonnie had special pointy fingers so he could play the bass, which is what we see on Burn Trap. So yes, Burn Trap is not technically William Afton. He's the Mimic 1 software that turned into Glitch Trap that Vanessa then turned into
that's a cool story.
If you haven't noticed yet, I've quite literally contradicted myself. At the beginning of the video, I said that the Mimic was Baby, and now I'm saying it's Burn Trap. But like I said earlier, we find out that Fazbear Entertainment built their own versions of the Mimic endoskeletons.
So how many are there out there? And how many mimics are mimicking the mimicking? Like, how do we know which is... Because the amount of endos down in the actual Fazbear Entertainment Pizzaplex is crazy. Like, just alone, when you go down and you get the... Oh, what is it? The fitness pass? The amount of endos that are in there, because that's where the staff meeting was. Like, why is there so many endos? Did they kill all the staff off, or?
This is what I believe Burn Trap is made from. The OG Mimic in the story with Edwin and his son, I still believe is the Charlie Bot slash Baby. The Mimic that Edwin built is never described to have bunny ears. And if you remember, David and the Mimic both had tiger plushies that they carried around with them. And as much as people like to say that it looks like Burn Trap is holding a plushie in his arm, every other time we see Afton, his arms are at his side. And in
So do you think they're going to end up introducing the tiger animatronic that's in one of the newest books that are coming out in the DLC? Or is that just going to be separate to the books?
This part of the cutscene, I'm just not convinced that's what he's doing. And if Burn Trap was actually imitating holding a tiger plush, that would imply the existence of Edwin, his son, and the tiger plushie in the game's timeline, which I don't see being the case since Edwin is very obviously a parallel to Henry. And in the epilogues where the Burn Trap Mimic is featured, it's never described to be holding a plushie or even looking like it's holding a plushie. One thing I forgot.
But if we're going like based off what Scott's created and stuff like that, the books could just be like a game or something that someone ends up playing within the actual universe that the games take place, or it's something digitally that someone ends up looking at and finding. I don't know.
Mention about the Mimic is that when it was playing with Edwin's son David, they used to draw on multicolored sheets of paper, which is exactly what we see in the sticky note room in Security Breach. But to get to the sticky note room, you have to go through the sewers until you reach this weird structure. It seems that the Pizzaplex was built on top of not just the old pizzeria, but some other structure. Judging by the parking spaces, it looks to be an abandoned parking structure. But I think this could easily be the in-game parallel of the abandoned factory.
Oh, that would, But what are the odds that they're like, yeah, so we're just gonna build on top of everything? So there is potentially more secrets that are here, and the original Mimic is somewhere out and about, just roaming.
Edwin and his son lived in. Need more proof? The Mimic and Edwin's son also used to draw on multicolored sheets of paper, like in the sticky note room that is connected right to the structure. And above the sticky note room, we have a workstation with endo blueprints on the table, which mimics Edwin's workstation where he built the Mimic.
And that is why on one of the sticky notes it says no adults, because if the endo ended up getting beaten up by the father due to his anger, that's why it didn't want no adults coming down or into this sticky note room.
The Mimic is also known for tearing off the arms and legs of anything it sees. And what do we see as we enter the sticky note room? Staffbot torsos missing all of their arms and legs. This all seemed like a slam dunk. But even with all of that, I was still having doubts until I realized this. One of the biggest things we know about Edwin's warehouse is that when the Fazbear employees entered it, the double doors locked behind them, trapping them inside. This is exactly what happens when you enter the sticky note room. The big double doors lock behind you, trapping you inside. Also, like I said, I believe the original Mimic was Henry's rebuilt version of Charlie. And in the source code, the doors we use to enter the sticky note room are titled Charlie Door. There are just way too many connections here for this to be a coincidence.
Coinkydink, I think not. This is so cool. This is so cool. I may not have got this 100% in collecting all the data from this theory video, but I'm still new to the FNAF community and like franchise and stuff, so bear with me as well. I just really like how complex and possibly where the lore could be going.
And all of this is to say that I think my original theory for who lived in the sticky note room might actually be correct. I definitely think it's possible that a robotic version of Charlie occupied that room. Just to clarify, I don't think Edwin is an actual character in the game universe, and I don't think that's his actual warehouse. All I'm saying is that these connections are real, and I think we'll find out way more about what these connections mean in the DLC. My guess right now is that this connects to Henry and the Charlie bots.
Could it? Because they seem to be really going in like the digital era. So could it just be a parallel with that? When you put the Vanny mask on, we see the parallel that John is talking about. I think it's John. Hopefully I've got that right. You see like the parallel of the books. So when you put that on, you see in this warehouse area, it is connected to the books in that way. But when you take the mask off, you're connected to the games. I don't know, that probably sounds really weird and like, no, that can't happen, but I don't know. I'm just trying to
One thing I've been looking back at recently is the wall code in the sister location room in Security Breach, and what it could possibly mean. If this is Michael's room, let's just assume that Michael wrote the code. And since this room is featured in sister location, there has to be some connection to that game. And I believe that connection is the one time we hear Michael speak in this entire franchise, during his speech to his father. In the speech, he says that he put her, aka Elizabeth, back together.
And I found her. I put her back together.
And in the code on the wall, it says, break and mend, I built the breath. They hunt now, drawn to life. But if Michael is only talking about Elizabeth, why would he be using they instead of she? That's because maybe there isn't just one Elizabeth bot. In the novel trilogy, Henry created 4 versions of Charlie, with the final book literally being titled The Fourth Closet.
Really?
Now let me point you towards the map we see in sister location during the Funtime Freddy section. On this map, we see the Afton house, Fredbear's, the bedroom from FNAF 4, and the plush trap minigame, with each gray dot representing an animatronic.
I didn't even know that. It seems like the more and more theory videos that I watch, it seems like sister locations is so important to connecting all the different dots to all the different other lore and theories and stuff.
This is something that Rye Toast actually pointed out to me a while back. We see Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, the Nightmare animatronics, and 4 separate dots with 1 in each closet. The 4 Elizabeth bots, 1 for each stage of her life. It's actually heavily hinted at that the Mimic wrote the symbols of the wall code on one of the sheets of paper he was drawing with Edwin's son, solidifying the connection between the Charlie/Elizabeth bot and the wall code. What Scott was trying to do with sister location is something that we never saw pay off in this franchise until now. I believe that this little girl is one of those 4 Charlie/Elizabeth bots that Michael put back together and might have occupied the sticky note room. But
and would Gregory be the group of children that went and explored the pizza place area, and that's why he ran up onto the stage trying to get away, and that's why he hasn't got any like data or anything within the pizzaplex itself, because he was one of them kids that explored there. Oh,
Like I said earlier, I still believe Baby is going to be revealed as the big bad in the DLC, or at least one of the 4 versions of her. Why do I think this? Well, last month in the 5th Tales from the Pizzaplex book, we were introduced to the Storyteller. Long story short, Fazbear Entertainment built a big tree in the middle of the atrium in the Pizzaplex called the Storyteller. Inside the tree was an AI that had fiber optic cables that were connected to every part of the Pizzaplex and basically
What, the avatar
everything.
is this?
The AI ended up being the reason all of the robots started acting more aggressive, which is what we see in Security Breach. Edwin, who still worked for Fazbear, noticed that the Storyteller was making everything worse. Because of this, Edwin decided to sneak inside the tree to see what was behind all of this. And what he found was quite literally a giant white tiger head. The same white tiger that his son and the Mimic were known for carrying around with them. The white tiger was running the same program that he created 40 years ago, Mimic 1. Obviously, this giant white tiger head is a little goofy and out of place. And when I think of a giant animatronic head that's goofy and out of place, I think of the giant Freddy head next to the pizzeria under the pizza.
How did I miss that? Maybe because I was getting chased down by endos. Why is that there?
The Storyteller tree also had a bunch of black fiber optic cables connecting to every part of the Pizzaplex. And what do we find after we see the giant Freddy head? The blob, which looks awfully similar to a bunch of black fiber optic cables in a giant clump. So do I think the Storyteller tree was actually a real thing in the Pizzaplex? No. But do I think it's a giant metaphor for the giant Freddy head and the blob? Maybe. If Baby really is the in-game version of the Mimic that Edwin built for his son, and the Mimic is represented by the giant white tiger head, then to me that screams that Baby is going to be behind the blob. That may sound insane, but we've seen this happen before in the Fazbear Frights series. Eleanor ended up being the big bad in those stories. And in FNAF World Update 2, the final boss looks like it's going to be the giant Purplegeist, but really gets revealed to be Chica's magic rainbow.
What? Chica's magic rainbow?
Something we see hanging in Charlie's bedroom in the Silver Eyes graphic novels. Now there's one more major thing we need to talk about. I think we can prove in Security Breach that the endos we see in that game are the newer versions of Henry's Mimic endo. As we learned in the story The Mimic, Edwin, aka Henry, was forced to have Fazbear Entertainment buy out his robotics company. And in my last theory, I talked about how in the FNAF 2 phone calls it reveals that Henry was the previous owner and that he lost the company.
We're gonna try to contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner or something like that.
I really do think that Stillwell, after they've done the DLC, they are going to do a Fredbear's Family Diner and go back to the original. I think one of the producers or one of the people that are working in Stillwell, I see a clip and they said they wish they can do an original from the beginning.
What this story reveals is that Henry might have signed away the company, but he was still making all of the robots, which would include the security puppet, which looks shockingly similar to the design of the Funtime animatronics, further backing up that the Funtime's designs were actually Henry's that Afton stole. If Henry really did build all of the animatronics we see in the games, that would include the toy animatronics. And one quirk of the toy animatronics is that they're sensitive to bright light.
Flash your light at him from time to time. Those older models would always get disoriented with bright light. It would cause a system restart or something. Come to think of it,
this is
try that
nuts.
in any room where something undesirable might be.
This is why I love them all. Or like the Furies in general.
Over to the newer models too.
And so are the Glamrock animatronics.
What are you doing? Why'd you do this to me, Gregory?
And what do we see hidden behind the arcade machine in Glamrock Freddy's green room? His matching toy version in plushie form. I'm aware that this video was insane, but if
I thought you was gonna look at the optic cable then as well, being that connected to the blob.
any of this theory ends up being correct, I will poop myself. But at this point, I'm just ready for some answers, whether I'm right or wrong. If by any chance Steelwool Studios is watching this right now, please, release Ruin.
It's coming! It's coming, and that is where we're gonna be leaving this video here. What a phenomenal theory. And we're going to get our answers next month. It is literally releasing next month. Let me know your ideas and thoughts down in the comments as well. And thank you so much as always for watching the video. If you end up watching a video, then say, I love tomato ketchup as the Mimic. Take care, everyone.
3
boom, boom, boom,
and
boom, boom.
4. Count what you have now. Don't count what you don't have.